Hi, friends. This is Vijay, and welcome to our podcast on health and wellness. And in the segment Doctor Cross Doctor of episode 2, Strike Sugar. While growing up, I liked sweets a lot, which I still do, and I was always one elders in the family that eating sweets would land me up in a condition called sugar in the later part of my life. I am sure majority of the listeners also have had similar stories in their childhood. And this becomes too huge a concern for elders, particularly if there is someone suffering from it already. Though I did not get it, it started its journey with me from the physiology days of MBBS continuing till today. And I know this is going to stay with me and each and every doctor's life as long as they are practicing. It's so chronic that it does not leave any doctor for his entire lifetime. Name a branch in medicine, you will find some pathology, which means it affects almost every part of the body. And as a surgeon, our first question goes on to diabetes because it disturbs healing. It delays stomach emptying, it causes ulcers and whatnot. It leads to a lot of problems. And as an oncologist, our main diagnostic staging PET-CT scan is dependent on the cells which take up more glucose, that is because of its high metabolism when compared to the surrounding cells, and it indirectly means that cancer cells also survive in high glucose environments. But the good news is that it can be kept at bay with simple lifestyle modifications in majority of people in earlier stages. And with this introduction, let us get into the topic for today, Strike Sugar. And we have with us young and ever smiling physician and diabetologist with 6 years of experience and has got amazing reviews from her patients. She is a mother of 8-month-old and a forefront corona warrior working for Sir Park Hospital, Gurgaon, National Capital Region, and she is Dr. Mayuri. Hi Dr. Mayuri, how are you and how's Delhi?
Hi sir, I'm good, juggling motherhood and work together. Delhi is good too, but it's super hot right now because of peak summer, and you know the COVID situation is really bad here.
Yeah, true. It is like in between both good and bad. So I cannot say whether it is good or bad right now, but we are very sure that, and we are very proud of you that regarding your multitasking skills and also you being a forefront corona warrior at this point in time.
Thank you so much, sir. Extremely humbled.
Mayuri, we are talking about diabetes, and in this episode, we are trying to target some very basic questions to begin with, and then we wish if you can give us a sneak peek into your diabetic treatments. Shall we go ahead?
Sure, sir.
Yeah,
yes, sir, definitely.
The first question is about the myths. We listen to many myths, and what's the surprising myth which you have come across till now?
The most surprising or probably a common myth which I have come across is eating sugars, a lot of sugar in fact, chocolates, desserts, ice creams and just sugars leads to diabetes, and eating a lot of bitter stuff such as karela or methi or fenugreek seeds will help in preventing diabetes, which is absolutely false, because until and unless we have a proper control on our foods and reduce eating high glycemic foods or have a control over on calories or eat everything in moderation and follow proper lifestyle and exercise every day, quit smoking, reduce alcohol consumption, there is no particular food which can actually prevent diabetes, sir.
Right. So it's the glycemic index of the food which is important and not just the sugar content of it. Right, Mayuri?
Absolutely, sir. High glycemic foods are to be taken in moderation or to be reduced.
Okay. So I would like to just ask a question related to type 1 and type 2 diabetes. What are they actually, and is it true that type 2 is little less dangerous when compared to type 1?
This is a very important question, sir, and I would love to answer. We all know that there is an organ called as pancreas just below our liver, and pancreas produces a hormone called as insulin. Now, insulin is responsible for controlling the high blood glucose levels in our body after food. Type 1 diabetes is a condition in which there is absolute deficiency of insulin. So, insulin is actually produced by beta cells of pancreas, and type 1 diabetes, which is also called as autoimmune diabetes, in which our own body tries to destroy the beta cells, and hence, because of this, there is no insulin production at all, and hence, the patients have to be given insulin from outside. This is usually seen in young children or less than 15 years of age group. And because we are giving insulin from outside, we have to be extremely careful, because a little more and it can lead to low sugars. And if there is no control over food, it can lead to a dangerous condition called as DKA, or diabetic ketoacidosis, which presents with nausea, vomiting, shortness of breath, and can lead to death also. So, type 1 diabetes is dangerous, and type 2 diabetes, which is more common, is a lifestyle disease usually seen above 40 or 45 years of age group, and is asymptomatic in about 70% of patients, which means they don't have any usual symptoms until and unless they come for a checkup. And because they don't have any symptoms, they don't have any complications which show up too, and so it's a little less dangerous when compared to type 1.
Okay, right. So whether it is type 1 or type 2, by the answer which you have told me, I understood that be it any type, it's just the proper control of the glucose which is more important. And if poorly controlled, both can equally turn out to be dangerous. Right, Mayuri?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Type 1 or type 2, proper glycemic control is must and essential.
Okay. Okay. So going ahead further, I want to know, when do we term a person as a pre-diabetic person or in a pre-diabetic phase, or when do we diagnose diabetes actually? And if at all we are trying to name particular person in a pre-diabetic phase, what precautions he has to take?
Now, this needs to be clarified in detail, sir. Pre-diabetes is something which is really important right now, and the entire world is focused on pre-diabetes, because if we control blood sugars of a person in pre-diabetes stage, we can definitely prevent type 2 diabetes, and this is something called as legacy effect. So, pre-diabetes, I would just give a small example here, sir. I would tell my patients, imagine you're standing in front of a vast ocean on the beach and you're just on the edge. Now, stepping back or stepping forward is completely in your hands. So, stepping back prevents you from pushing you into the high tide of the vast ocean and drowning, whereas stepping forward takes you inside and then you'll be drowned in type 2 diabetes. So, the ocean is type 2 diabetes and the beach or the step is pre-diabetes, sir. So, pre-diabetes is absolutely controllable, and with proper lifestyle modifications we can bring the blood sugars into normal, and we can prevent type 2 diabetes. So how do we term somebody as pre-diabetic or diabetic? Here we follow the American Diabetic Association guidelines, sir. We don't have individual guidelines of our own in India, and hence we follow the ADA guidelines. So according to ADA guidelines, fasting blood glucose of less than 100 is absolutely normal. So in India, each lab has its own value and we don't follow all that. The entire world follows a strict, rigid guideline by the ADA, and according to it, less than 100 is absolutely normal. 100 to 126 of fasting blood glucose is called as pre-diabetes, and anything more than 126 is called frank diabetes or absolute type 2 diabetes. Similarly, postprandial blood sugars of less than 140 is absolutely normal. 140 to 200 is called as pre-diabetes, and more than 200 is called as absolute diabetes. And the third most important thing, a 3-month blood glucose average or HbA1c of less than 5.7 is absolutely normal. 5.7 to 6.4 is called as pre-diabetes, and anything more than 6.5 is termed as absolute or frank diabetes. So all these three are extremely important in understanding if a person is normal or a pre-diabetic or a diabetic, sir.
Okay. So what precautions should a pre-diabetic person should take?
A pre-diabetic person, especially if he has a family history, proper lifestyle modification is a must, sir. Keeping your weight in check is important because obesity is highly related to type 2 diabetes, and hence proper diabetic diet. Even for pre-diabetic people also, we advise a diabetic diet where we ask them to have a calorie restriction, take less sugars, restrict their fruit intake, and then restrict their cool drinks and sugars and everything, tea, coffee and everything. Give them a proper diabetic chart and ask them to follow a strict exercise schedule for every day, about 30 minutes every day for about 5 days in a week. That's about 150 minutes, should be fine. Quit smoking completely, have a control on the consumption of alcohol, reduce their salt intake, and this will definitely help in preventing a person from entering into type 2 diabetes if followed strictly, sir.
Right. And your example of just standing near a beach is really good. I think in all of our listeners, if they are understanding this particular point, they should actually step back. Like they should move towards the lifestyle modification part.
Thank you so much, sir. Absolutely. They should definitely step back.
Okay. And Mayuri, is it true that all patients will have to use anti-diabetic medications, irrespective of the glucose levels or something like that?
No, sir. Not all patients need to take anti-diabetic medication. So initially, when a person comes to us for the first time, even they have certain fears inside them. And this again depends on the sugar values also, apart from their fears. So imagine a person is just on the borderline of pre-diabetes and diabetes, and their sugars are in 130, 140 range, and then HbA1c is around 6.6, 6.7 or 6.8. Then initially I again advise them lifestyle modification, the same thing I have described in the previous question. Proper diabetic diet, strict exercise, at least 150 minutes a week, and then having a control on their foods, having a control on their alcohol consumption, quitting smoking and stuff for about 3 to 6 months. So HbA1c is something which we check every 3 months. So the first 3 months fine, the next 3 months okay. So even after 6 months, if their sugars are not in control with lifestyle modifications and their HbA1c doesn't come below 6.5, then we are forced to start them on anti-diabetic medications.
Okay. So definitely lifestyle modification is the first and a single step to prevent many problems, and even diabetes is one among them. Right, Mayuri?
Exactly, sir. Not just diabetes. I think there are a lot of diseases right now, obesity, metabolic syndrome, hypertension, which are all interlinked, hypercholesterolemia, which can be controlled with lifestyle modifications, and that should not be neglected at all.
Right. Very well put. And we are also coming across many health checkups going on in various laboratories across India, doing RBS as one of the common investigation. How seriously should one consider the test reports if they don't have a history particularly?
Sir, RBS is called as random blood sugar, which means it can be collected randomly at any point of the day, irrespective of whether the patient has taken food or not, whether the patient is a smoker or an alcoholic and stuff like that. So RBS alone is not very important, sir. However, we do ask patients to keep their RBS below 200 milligrams per deciliter, and if at all the RBS is more than 200, they should immediately visit their nearby doctor and get their entire panel of sugars, that is fasting, blood glucose, postprandial and HbA1c checked up, and if any value is in the pre-diabetic or diabetic stage, consult the diabetologist immediately. Okay,
so as such RBS need not worry anyone, and if at all there is a doubt, they should meet the doctor definitely.
Yes,
and
sir,
along
yes.
with that, proper glycemic control is also must, irrespective of whether they are in diabetes or whether they are in pre-diabetic phase. Lifestyle modification plus proper glycemic food is more important. Right,
Yes,
Mayuri?
sir, absolutely perfect.
Okay, so what if, suppose if someone fails to properly have a good controlled glycemic index food or proper lifestyle modifications, what if that is not done, and why is it called diabetes called a silent killer on a longer term?
Yes, sir. Diabetes is definitely called a silent killer because it can eat away every part of your body, starting from your head to toe. So, about 70 to 80% of patients with type 2 diabetes are asymptomatic, sir, which means they do not have any symptoms until they just come to the clinic and get their sugars checked up, or just get their sugars checked up randomly at home. So, because it is asymptomatic, by the time they visit their clinic, they are already in the stage of complications. And what exactly are the complications? So diabetes mainly has these three complications, which we call as triopathy: retinopathy, nephropathy, and neuropathy, which means diabetes can affect your vision and retina. Diabetes can affect the kidneys and urine output. And the third one, diabetes can affect the peripheral nerves and can cause tingling, numbness, burning sensation, and a lot of uneasiness while walking. These are relatively simpler complications, and the major complications are diabetes can lead to myocardial infarction or sudden heart attacks or cardiac arrest, sir. And it can also affect the lungs. It can cause pulmonary edema. At the same time, it can also lead to cerebral stroke. So it is really very dangerous, and a proper glycemic control is definitely needed.
Right, right. So it doesn't leave any part of the body. It almost affects everything.
Yes,
Right.
yes. It even
Are
affects
there?
the skin, and also, every part of the body is affected.
Yeah, true, true. Are there any emergencies which diabetics should be aware of while they are taking treatments, Mayuri?
Absolutely, sir. Before starting any medication for any patient, I take into consideration their weight, whether a patient is obese or a patient is thin, and also consider their family history, their previous history, if they are smoking or if they have alcohol intake, they have any heart related history, and what exactly are their liver function tests and kidney function tests, because a majority of medicines need to be modified as per their liver and kidney function tests. This is for us, but for the patients, there is something really very important which is called as hypoglycemia or low sugars. Now, I would call hypoglycemia more dangerous than hyperglycemia, because people can live with high sugars for a few days, but with low sugars or less than 50 sugars, it can lead to coma and sudden death. So what exactly is hypoglycemia? Less than 75 or 70 blood glucose is called as hypoglycemia, sir. And if any patient has sweating or palpitations or giddiness while on diabetic medication, they should immediately take 2 spoons of sugar or glucose powder in a glass of water and drink, and then recheck their sugars after half an hour or 1 hour. And even then, if it is still low, immediately rush to the nearby hospital and get their drips, sir.
Right, right. So this is one major complication, and the drive home point here is low sugars are more dangerous than high sugars. Right,
Yes, sir. Low sugars are definitely dangerous than high sugars.
right. And my last question, Mayuri, is how often do you see cancers in diabetics? And this question is only because I'm an oncologist. I'm interested in this part also. And can diabetes be attributed to carcinogenesis? What's your experience?
Definitely, sir. I understand the question. You being an oncologist, you're asking it. Yes, sir. We have a lot of oncologists referring to us patients who are diabetics, and I could see a definite relationship between diabetes and certain types of cancers, such as estrogen positive breast cancer, hepatocellular carcinoma, then gastric and colon carcinoma because of delayed gastric emptying. However, I do attribute this to increase in the counter regulatory hormones, because the low insulin can lead to increase in certain hormones called as glucagon and adrenaline, and these are carcinogenic. At the same time, all this lead to increase in something called as insulin like growth factor 1, IGF-1, which again is carcinogenic.
Right, right. Okay. So that's actually a new thing for me also. Thank you, Mayuri. Thank you so much for taking part in this podcast. And it feels really good to see all of you very successful. And before closing the show, I want to know one of your best positive experience in relation to patients with respect to diabetes. And I also want to just add one more point, that because I feel you are more experienced, because you have 6 years of experience in treating diabetes than me having only 2 years of experience in treating oncology, and as a whole about 5 years.
Thank you so much, sir. You are such a successful surgical oncologist, and I'm really glad to be a part of your podcast. And it is because of you I'm able to reach out to so many people through this podcast. And yes, positive points. There are a lot of positive points, sir. I have many patients back in Hyderabad who still reach out to me on calls and messages, and I miss them and I miss my practice in Hyderabad. However, I will definitely let you know one incident which happened. So I had a regular patient who used to come to me and visit me in my clinic, and one such day She came with a history of nausea and shortness of breath and a little uneasiness in the stomach. And she was not previously a diabetic, but then I checked sugars of every patient. So when I checked the sugars, it was around 515 or 520. And then this was an alarm, and I sent her to the hospital. And then when I reached the hospital, we checked the ketones, and ketones showed 3 plus, which means DKA or diabetic ketoacidosis, which is really dangerous. I immediately started her on insulin infusion, a lot of IV fluids, then corrected her electrolyte imbalance and stuff. And on the 4th or 5th day, her sugars came back to control less than 150. She was extremely happy. Her entire family was really happy. And the next time, after a week, they came back to my clinic, and they also gave me a big box of chocolates, she being a diabetic. And then they still treat me like a special member of their family, sir, and they call me as God, which is really high to use. And this is probably why I love my profession, sir, in spite of all the hurdles, in spite of all the difficulties we face, right from our MBBS days, PG days, and now being a frontline COVID warrior with all the risk and stuff. This is the only thing which keeps me happy and keeps me going. Small gestures from our patients and admiration and love, yes.
Very nice to hear, Mayuri. Very nice to hear your experience. And though you have restricted the glucose for the patient, yet they have got you chocolates to you. That's really nice from their side. And actually, it made me remember my phase during internship when we also have treated certain diabetic ketoacidosis patients, though we are just house surgeons at that point of time.
True, sir.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mayuri.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure.
So on this positive note, my friends, we are signing off. And for further information, you can leave a voice message or visit our personal web pages, the links of which are given in the podcast description area. Thank you and good luck till we meet next time with a good topic. Thank you. Just a small note, my friends. The conversation between Dr. Mayuri and me was like she addressing me as sir. That doesn't actually mean she is subordinate or something. It's just because while we were doing our MBBS, we were supposed to call our seniors as sir, and she happened to be from 2006 batch and I am from 2004. I have full respect for her, and I really respect everything what she does and the way how she is giving her services to the society and her multitasking skills. Thank you.